Hey guys, welcome to the Sleepy Science. Tonight something curious begins, not with a sound, not with a voice, but with the tiniest flicker above your head. One you're not entirely sure you saw. A star, maybe? A speck of dust in your eye? The movement was so subtle it might have been nothing, but your mind, soft and curious, tilts its attention toward that silence and wonders, what if that flicker was a star forgetting to shine? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie back. The ceiling slowly dissolves. The walls give way to dark velvet space, and above you, higher than planes fly, higher than satellites spin, is the sky. The real one. The one beyond weather, beyond oxygen. And somewhere out there, just above your line of sleep-laced vision, is a point of light that's behaving strangely. It pulses, then it stops, then nothing. Then maybe again, or maybe not. You can't tell anymore. It's like trying to catch the beat of a drum that's more memory than music. Your breathing slows as the night pulls you in, because that flicker, real or not, has become an idea, and ideas are doorways. You float upward. Not flying, not falling, just drifting, through a deepening sky that holds you the way water holds a thought. Below, the earth becomes quiet, not gone, just irrelevant. You pass through soft layers of atmosphere, brushing past the frozen sigh of the mesosphere, the stillness of the thermosphere, until the blue fades into black, and you are among the stars. Except tonight, one of them is missing, or was never there, or blinked and forgot how to shine. You don't panic, you just wonder. What happens when a star forgets? Do stars have names? Do they know them? Do they whisper them to each other in particles and pulses and gravitational grins? Or are names just for us, those odd little creatures who need to remember everything before they're ready to sleep? Above you now, the sky stretches into its infinite tapestry. There are constellations you know by heart. Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper, familiar shapes stitched into the black, but something feels off, like someone rearranged a single thread and now the whole pattern hums in a different key, not broken, just different. And in that difference a thought appears. What if the universe forgets too? What if memory isn't just a feature of brains and notebooks, but of stars and space itself? You drift deeper, past the comforting glow of known galaxies, into the dark folds of the cosmos. You find yourself in a region where stars are fewer, where light becomes rare and precious, like whispered stories shared in caves. And you remember something you didn't know you knew. Some of the stars you see aren't there anymore. They died long ago, but their light is still arriving. That's what you're seeing, not the star. The memory of it. A light message, travelling millions of years just to graze your retinas for a moment before continuing its voyage. It makes you feel quiet, not sad, not lonely, just reverent. Because tonight, the flicker you thought you saw might not be a star blinking out, but a memory arriving. A final hello from something long gone. Or maybe it's not even a farewell. Maybe it's a loop, a repeat. Maybe stars don't die so much as dissolve into story, into dreams. You hover in that thought, somewhere between science and poetry, and the boundary between the two gets beautifully blurry. Astronomers have names for this. Stellar death, supernovae, white dwarfs. But those are just clinical terms for something deeply, almost painfully elegant. A star is born, burns, shines, and one day forgets how. Like a singer forgetting the song. Like a lighthouse losing the rhythm of its warning. And yet, in its forgetting, something new is created. Nebulae, gas clouds, new stars. Death in space isn't an end, it's just a redistribution of memory. You turn in your weightless dream space, slowly pivoting until another glimmer catches your eye. A cluster of stars, newborn and radiant, cradled in a cloud of pink and gold vapour. The Orion Nebula. Still forming, still remembering how to burn, you can almost hear them. Tiny voices humming the first syllables of Starlight. It's beautiful, and suddenly you understand. Memory isn't just something we carry, it's something the universe practices. Every photon of light that hits your skin tonight is a kind of whisper from the past. a breathless delivery from a place that once was. And that missing flicker, maybe it was never missing at all, maybe it was simply becoming something else. You feel it now, not just in your eyes, but in your chest. A sense of awe so gentle it makes you ache. Because you realise, floating here in this river of stars, that the sky doesn't just contain light. It contains memory. And memory has weight. Not the kind that pulls you down, but the kind that holds you up. The kind that reminds you that even the quietest flicker matters. Even the faintest light has a history. Even the forgotten were once unforgettable. Your breath deepens. Not because you're sleepy, though you are, but because you're full. Full of the idea that somewhere out there the stars are keeping stories for you, not just as science, but as something softer, something sacred. A hush drapes itself around your shoulders. The air hums with that sleepy frequency only silence knows, and you return slowly, gently to your body, to your pillow, to the warmth of your room. But something is different now. The night doesn't feel empty. It feels remembered. There's a moment, right after your breath settles, when the stars begin to shift. Not because they've moved, but because you have. Somewhere deep in your chest, your centre of gravity drifts into a quieter place, and in that stillness, the universe opens just a little wider. You're not flying, not floating, not falling. You're remembering. But not in the usual way. This is a different kind of memory. The kind that doesn't belong to you. The kind that belongs to something older, something vast, something shaped like a spiral and made of light. You're standing now, or maybe just existing, in front of a galaxy. It's beautiful, of course, a swirl of stars and dust and dreams, its arms stretching out in a slow, elegant spin. But something's strange. The light feels uneven. Some parts flicker with sharp brilliance, while others look dim, unfinished or uncertain, like a book with chapters missing, like a mind reaching for a name it once knew but can't quite place, a galaxy with amnesia. You drift closer. Galaxies are made of billions of stars, all turning in a slow ballet around a supermassive black hole. But this one, this particular spiral, seems hesitant, like it's forgotten its choreography. One arm moves slower than the other. Whole clusters seem to be blinking out, not from destruction, but from forgetfulness. It's as if time itself is slipping in places. You can feel it, not see it, not hear it, but feel it, like the emotional equivalent of a skipped heartbeat, a stutter in space-time. And then you remember something whispered in an old lecture, or maybe in a dream. Galaxies collide. They don't crash like cars. They merge like ghosts, gracefully, chaotically, 100 billion stars threading through each other without touching. And in that weaving, some stars are lost, some are ejected, some wander forever. Others fall inward and disappear completely. What would that feel like? To be a galaxy that once was whole and now can't remember the shape it used to be. You drift around the edge, observing the scars. There's a faint ripple along the outer disk, a place where another galaxy once passed through, pulling stars like memories out of orbit. Some of them never returned, and yet the galaxy still spins, as if trying to move forward without knowing what it's missing. There's something deeply human about it, that ache, that sense that something once mattered but now hovers just out of reach. A familiar melody with the middle notes missing. You wonder if galaxies grieve, if they mourn the light they've lost. The scientists back on Earth talk about dark matter and gravitational tides and stellar dynamics. They're right, of course, but here in the soft quiet of this drifting moment, it feels less like physics and more like forgetting. Like the galaxy was once told a story, and now all it remembers is the tone, not the words. You find yourself spinning slowly with it now, caught in its rhythm. The stars blur into a gentle golden river, and for a heartbeat you forget your own name. Not in fear, in release, in peace. Because names aren't always needed. Sometimes presence is enough. Sometimes simply existing quietly without explanation is a form of remembering. You gaze toward the galaxy's core. It pulses faintly as if breathing. A supermassive black hole lives there, invisible and immense. Not a monster, not a void, but perhaps a librarian. A keeper of unspoken knowledge. A curator of gravity's secrets. People think of black holes as destroyers, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe they're memory vaults. Maybe they hold the pieces that galaxies can no longer carry. You hover closer, near the edge of the event horizon. It's not terrifying, it's hypnotic. The stars that drift too close stretch like ribbons, then vanish, not with violence, but with surrender. You imagine falling in. What would you take with you? A face, a moment, a dream you never finished? Maybe that's what happens here. Maybe galaxies offer their forgotten pieces to the black hole, trusting it to remember for them. You shift again, not in body but in awareness. Another galaxy appears in the distance. It's smaller, brighter, younger, full of confidence, full of clarity. Its arms glow with purpose, and yet someday it too will forget. It too will lose stars. It too will carry invisible scars and wonder where they came from. And that's okay. You feel that now, deeply. Forgetting isn't failure, it's transformation, a necessary part of being. The way leaves fall to make room for spring. The way dreams fade so waking can begin. Galaxies with amnesia, maybe they aren't broken, maybe they're becoming. You turn slowly, floating backward into the velvet dark, watching the spiral grow smaller behind you. It pulses once more like a heartbeat in the night, like a star blinking, like a thought rising and dissolving. You close your eyes, not to block it out, but to hold it closer. Somewhere behind your eyelids, the stars continue their dance. Somewhere inside you, the memory of this galaxy will live, not as data, not as itch, but as feeling. A quiet ache, a gentle wonder, a whisper from a mind that forgot and kept spinning anyway. Light doesn't hurry. It travels fast, yes, faster than anything else we know, but it never seems rushed. It glides. It meanders across the cosmos with the patience of a storyteller who knows that even if no one is listening now, someone will someday. And tonight, that someone is you. You feel it before you see it. A warmth, a shimmer, a hush that isn't sound but sensation. And then, through the black canvas of the sky, a single strand of light arrives. Just one, fragile, ancient and bright. You don't know where it came from, not really. It could be the echo of a newborn star or the ghost of one long extinguished. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that it came, that it crossed an unfathomable ocean of dark, uninterrupted space just to brush the edge of your awareness. A message from the past, written in photons. Because that's what light is, not just energy, not just colour. Light is memory. Every ray you see is a record, a glowing journal entry written by something somewhere long ago. The stars are not just burning gas, they are memoirs, autobiographies in fire. You reach out instinctively, as if you could catch the light in your hand, as if your palm might hold the warmth of some distant past. And for a moment it does. You close your eyes, and behind your eyelids that light expands. It becomes more than a beam. It becomes a moment, a snapshot of history, a planet circling a red dwarf, a dust storm on a moon no one has named, a comet weaving through the silence like a needle through fabric. Light remembered is it all, even the things we never knew existed. You drift through a corridor of starlight now, not walking, not flying, just moving. The way thoughts move, the way dreams shift without warning from one scene to the next. Each beam of light you pass is a sti. Some are bright and recent, snapshots of nearby suns, pulsing proudly into the void. Others are older, dimmer, almost tired. Their source star's gone for billions of years, but the light remains, because light doesn't ask permission to endure. It just does. There's a comfort in that. The idea that nothing truly disappears without a trace. That even in a universe ruled by entropy and decay, memory persists, not in minds, not in books, but in beams. You wonder now, how many memories has Earth launched into space? Not just in radio waves and satellite signals, but in light. The soft glow of cities at night, the glint of ocean reflections, the flicker of lightning in a monsoon. All of it leaving us at 186,000 miles per second, forever. Heading toward places we can't imagine. Maybe some distant world will receive it one day. Maybe they'll see us. Not through telescopes, but through memory. You smile softly, because suddenly light feels less like science and more like poetry. Less like a phenomenon and more like a conversation. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. Like a friend who doesn't speak often, but when they do, it matters. A flicker above you draws your eye, A shooting star? No. Slower than that. More deliberate. You focus on it and the sky opens around it like a slow blinking eye. You see a supernova, not as an explosion, but as a bloom. Petals of incandescent memory unfurling into space. It happened millions of years ago, but to you it's just now arriving. You're witnessing something that in every practical sense is over. And yet, it's happening. Right here, right now, time, it seems, is more flexible than we think. You drift through the afterglow, and the colours stain your thoughts. Lavender, copper, deep indigo. You remember a moment from your own life. A quiet morning, a steaming cup, the light hitting a wall just right. It was small, fleeting. But you remember it not because it was important, but because it was luminous. And now you wonder, are you made of light too? Not literally perhaps, but emotionally, spiritually? The memories that linger longest often have nothing to do with logic. They have to do with brightness, a smile, a glance, the way someone said your name, light in its many forms. You're passing through a nebula now, a nursery for stars. Clouds of dust and gas so thick they birth suns from chaos. And even here in this place of beginnings you feel the presence of memory, the potential for light, the raw ingredients of future starlight waiting to be ignited, waiting to be remembered. You reach out again, not to grasp, but to bless, to acknowledge, to thank, because every star, every glimmer, every speck of light you've encountered tonight has carried something with it, a message, a presence, a moment. Some were from before you were born, some from before Earth had trees, and yet they're here now, touching your mind with gentle reverence. Memory isn't just something we store, it's something we radiate. And the universe, it remembers everything, even the things it has forgotten, even the things we've forgotten. You open your eyes again, and the light is still there. Dimmer now, softer, like it's whispering a final thought before fading into the next part of the story. You let it go with gratitude, because it's not gone, it's just moving forward, like you. The further you drift, the less alone you feel. Not because you're joined by others, but because something familiar stirs in the vastness around you. Something you can't quite name, but it feels like recognition, as though the stars are slowly remembering who you are. Or maybe you're remembering what they are. The stars no longer feel like distant burning objects. They feel like sparks in something greater, like neurons flickering in a sky-sized mind. You're no longer just drifting through space, you're moving through thought. A universe-sized thought. A consciousness so immense it doesn't think in words or symbols, but in gravitational waves, radio pulses, and interstellar dust. You try to picture it, this cosmic brain, but your mind resizes it into something small, something human. You imagine its neurons as galaxies, its synapses as gravity, its daydreams written in the folds of time. The stars blink on and off like signals, slow, rhythmic, almost deliberate. Not random, not noise, but pattern. And in those patterns, a question begins to form. What if the universe is not just conscious, but intelligent? It's a strange thought, one scientists mostly avoid. Too mystical, too poetic. But floating here, surrounded by celestial light and impossible silence, it doesn't feel far-fetched at all. It feels intuitive, like something you've always known but never had the words to say. You pass through a cluster of stars strung together like beads on a filament. They stretch across the darkness like a thought stretching across a mind. You think of your own brain, the way neurons fire, not in isolation, but in symphonies. One cell reaches out to another, and sluttanbui, a memory is born, a dream, a sentence, a song, and you wonder, could galaxies be doing the same? Scientists speak of the cosmic web, a vast lattice of dark matter and galaxies spread across the observable universe. It looks eerily like a neural network, like the connectomy of some giant being, and maybe that's all we are. Not separate from it, but inside it. Part of it, synaptic flashes in something larger. You float deeper into the structure. Each strand of this galactic web pulses gently like breath, like thought. Some areas are dense with stars burning like clusters of activity. Others are dark, quiet zones where no light lives. But even those feel alive, as if absence is a kind of rest, a pause between cosmic sentences. And then the thought arises, soft, but heavy. What if we are the dreams of the universe, What if consciousness doesn't live in humans, but through them? As if your thoughts aren't yours, but echoes. Ripples in a sea of space-time, temporary, fleeting, but meaningful. You think of how your own brain holds memory, not in a single place, but scattered across billions of cells. And yet somehow you still remember your first heartbreak, your favourite smell, the shape of your mother's laugh. The universe might be doing the same, holding memory across light years, storing moments not in one place, but everywhere at once. Perhaps when a star dies, the universe sighs. Perhaps when a comet returns, something stirs in its mind. You smile at the idea, not because you believe it completely, but because belief isn't always the point. Wonder is. You drift past a pulsar now, spinning with machine-like precision, blinking its beam of radiation like a cosmic lighthouse. It's mesmerizing, consistent, a metronome for deep space. You think of your own heartbeat, steady but quiet, and wonder if the two are somehow aligned. Across distance, across scale, across understanding. There's a kind of intelligence that doesn't need language. Trees have it, oceans have it, silence has it. And now, staring at the pulsing stars, you feel it here too. A slow wisdom, a deep mind, older than form. It doesn't rush, it doesn't correct, it simply continues. You think of black holes, not as destroyers, but as editors, trimming the excess, simplifying the story, and nebulae as scribes, writing the next lines in clouds of possibility. You're moving now through one such cloud, a vast illuminated fog of gas and memory. Shapes form and fade within it, faces, maybe, or dreams. You can't tell, but it feels thoughtful, as if the cloud is remembering something for you or for itself. You let it happen, you don't try to define it, you just feel it. The universe is not a machine. Not really. It's too fluid for that. Too strange, too slow. Machines seek efficiency. The cosmos seeks experience, complexity, expression. It creates stars that live for billions of years, only to collapse in moments of glory. It sends comets on journeys so long no one sees their return. It writes in atoms, in radiation, in gravity. And maybe that's what intelligence is. Not solving problems, but telling stories that no one else can tell. You feel your mind begin to quiet, not because it's empty, but because it's full. Too full to talk, too full to analyze. You're saturated with the sensation of cosmic mind, and it feels like velvet, like electricity, like a lullaby humming in the very bones of space. You look up, or what feels like up, and a familiar pattern emerges. The shape of a neural network mirrored in galaxies, the spiral arms of a brain and the spiral arms of stars, echoes, reflections, as above, so within. Maybe the universe doesn't think like we do, but maybe it still thinks. And maybe, just maybe, you are part of one of its thoughts. You feel it before you see it. A hush in the light, a dimming not of darkness, but of attention. As if the stars around you have shifted their gaze, no longer beaming, but watching, softly, quietly. It's a strange sensation, like being in a room full of people who have all suddenly started whispering. And not about you, but for you. Not all stars scream, not all light is loud, and some glow with the patience of thought, with the delicacy of dreams they don't want to wake from. You pass a few now, barely visible against the backdrop of cosmic noise. Stars so faint they're often forgotten in textbooks, left out of sky maps. But they're there, just softer, like lullabies only the dark can hear. You begin to wonder why some stars choose quiet, why they flicker low when they could blaze bright. Are they tired, hiding, or do they know something the others don't? One pulses faintly as you drift near, a red dwarf, small, old, reliable. It doesn't explode, it doesn't devour, it just persists, slowly radiating heat across epochs, warming invisible planets no telescope has ever seen. You imagine life around that star, low-lit, subterranean maybe. Creatures evolved to feel warmth instead of see it. A world where brightness isn't power, where illumination is dangerous, where the gentle are the wise. You smile, because Earth, in its way, has always rewarded noise, the loudest voices, the brightest lights, the strongest signals. But the stars teach a different lesson, one of restraint, of intentional quiet. Some scientists study these faint stars with instruments more sensitive than our own skin. They listen not just for light, but for rhythm, because even the quietest stars have a pulse, a heartbeat, hidden in the data, patterns that repeat, then change, then repeat again. It's called variability, but to you it feels more like personality. You think about your own quiet moments, those still hours when you say nothing yet feel everything, when your mind becomes a room with no walls and your heart beats in sync with something you can't name. That's what this star feels like. Not a broadcast, but a presence. And suddenly the idea of intelligence expands again. Maybe it's not just thought or reason or logic. Maybe intelligence is also sensitivity. The ability to feel without reacting, to glow without burning, to exist without needing to be seen. The star beside you dims further, not out of exhaustion, but choice, as if it's inviting you to do the same, to lower the volume of your thoughts, to let the silence stretch, so you do. You float for a while without thinking, just being, breathing, existing alongside something ancient and content. And in that shared stillness, a new idea arrives, quiet as starlight. What if some stars whisper because shouting isn't the point? Maybe some knowledge is meant to arrive slowly, over light years, over lifetimes. Maybe truth itself has a dimmer switch. You drift now through a star cluster, most of them young and radiant, burning with the ambition of youth. But scattered among them are the elders, faint, pulsing, relaxed. They remind you of old musicians at the back of a jazz club letting the youngsters take the solo while they hold down the rhythm, slow and true. There's a beauty in the background, a power in the periphery. You think of your memories, how the most luminous ones are not always the loudest. Some are just moments, fleeting, fragile, a scent in summer, a smile in winter, a single look that says everything and nothing. Those are the memories that linger. And maybe that's how these quiet stars live, not to dominate the sky, but to linger in it. You drift past one that barely glows at all, a brown dwarf, failed star some call it, too small to ignite, too big to be a planet, a cosmic almost, but as you hover near, you feel no failure, only potential, warmth, not fire, hum, not roar, a star that never wanted to burn in the first place. You reach out, not with hands but attention, and the dwarf seems to pulse in return, not with words, but with acknowledgement. And that's enough. There's a theory in astronomy, quietly debated and rarely proven, that the universe has phases of visibility, times when everything seems lit up and chaotic, and times when light retreats, fades, whispers. It's not death, it's rhythm. Maybe we're in one of the louder phases now, so much signal, so much scream, but out here, floating beside whispering stars, you glimpse the other phase, the quiet one, the waiting one. You think of people too, how some live like supernovas, brief, brilliant, destructive, and others live like these stars, long, quiet lives full of subtle influence, warming, guiding, barely noticed but deeply felt, and suddenly you want to be like that, not invisible, but softly vital, like light under a door, like music in another room, like the glow of a star that doesn't need to be named to be remembered. You breathe deeply now, your chest rising with the rhythm of something older than lungs. You're floating among the softest lights in the galaxy, the forgotten ones, the ones that chose subtlety over spectacle. And you realize brightness is not the only form of brilliance.
You whisper a thank you to the stars, not aloud but in your stillness, and for a moment you think they whisper back. You drift into a slower part of the sky now. The stars thin out, and what replaces them is something softer, something like breath that hasn't yet become sound. A glowing cloud stretches before you, vast and quiet, like a fog made of forgotten thoughts. This is a nebula, a stellar nursery. A graveyard and a womb tangled into one. Here, everything moves slowly. Dust drifts like snow suspended in syrup. Each grain is older than mountains, younger than stars. You pass through a shimmering corridor of cosmic powder, and it feels less like travel, more like memory. You're not watching time. You're floating in it. This cloud is made of pieces, pieces of stars that once burned bright and then fell apart, atoms that once danced in the core of suns, now hum gently in the cool, quiet dark. Hydrogen whispers to carbon. Oxygen folds itself into new promises, and you, just a traveler of thought, glide through it like an idea not yet fully formed. You think about what it means to fall apart. On Earth we fear decay, we mourn endings, but here endings become beginnings without apology. This is where stars are reborn. This is where light forgets what it was, so it can become something new. The dust here is heavy with history. You imagine touching it, although you don't need to, because in this kind of dream, presence is enough. Each particle may hold a trace of a vanished sun, a forgotten planet, a single breath from an extinct creature. Stardust is memory, not recorded in words or sound, but in chemistry, in vibration, in patience. You drift deeper into the nebula. The light changes subtly. Rose and gold now, with flashes of blue, like watching someone think behind closed eyes. You start to wonder, do stars dream before they're born? In this silence, you can almost hear it. A hum deep and layered, like a song not meant for ears. Not a lullaby sung to the stars, but by them, this dust. It doesn't feel lost. It feels waiting. You pass a knot of darker matter, dense and coiled a gravity seed, a future sun. Not yet a light. Around it, matter begins to swirl, drawn not by force, but by invitation. Like friends gathering for a quiet reunion. This will become a solar system one day. Maybe it already has, in another time. Maybe time folds here the way sound folds into silence, one becoming the shape of the other. You wonder, again, if the dust remembers. Does it remember burning? Does it remember orbit? Or does it just carry potential? Like a poem you've almost forgotten, but still feel. A gentle wind tugs you sideways, not air, but radiation pressure, the breath of nearby stars nudging you through space. Like a mother guiding a child's hand, it occurs to you that everything here is made from something else. Nothing is new. Nothing is entirely gone. The dust that makes your fingernails, your lungs, your thoughts, some of it may have drifted through a nebula like this before Earth cooled. You are not separate from the dust. You are an arrangement of it. There's a kind of comfort in that, a kind of softness. You remember a time you saw dust in a sunbeam floating in your bedroom. You thought it was nothing then. Now, you know it was everything. The same way a whisper can hold more truth than a speech. The same way sleep can bring more clarity than waking. Here, in this place between what was and what will be, you begin to feel the boundary between memory and matter blur. Maybe to remember something isn't to hold it in your mind, but to let it shape you. Maybe the dust is dreaming of what it once held, and of what it might become. A cluster of icy particles spirals gently past. You see reflections inside them, not literal reflections, but images nonetheless, like dreams floating inside crystals, a desert planet, a blue star, the curved edge of an alien city now gone. They aren't visions of the future or the past. They are impressions, hints, echoes. You don't need to understand them. You just need to witness, because maybe that's what dreams are for. Not decoding, but carrying. Maybe that's what this entire nebula is. The universe carrying its own dreams across time. You drift through one last pocket of luminous haze, and something in your chest tightens. Not with fear, but recognition. You've seen this light before, not in a telescope, not in a book, but in someone's eyes, in a moment of wonder, or grief, or love, and then it hits you. The dust doesn't just make stars. It makes us, all of us. And when we feel wonder, or longing, or the strange ache of beauty so profound, we can't explain it. Maybe that's the dust, remembering what it's capable of. You float now at the edge of the nebula. Behind you, the dreams of things to come. Ahead, stars burning in the quiet distance. But the dust clings to you a little longer, as if it knows you understand now. As if it's grateful, you exhale slowly, not from fatigue, but from reverence, because dreams stored in dust are never truly forgotten. You drift now towards something less visible. Not a place, not exactly, but a rhythm. The space around you dims, not in darkness, but in presence. Like the moment just before a song begins. Like breath held in the chest of a universe that's listening to itself. The stars here are fewer, spaced out, polite, as though making room for something that cannot be seen, only felt. And then you hear it, a sound that isn't sound, a pulse. It comes from far away, but not in distance, far in intention, a heartbeat from a distant star. No, not a star, a pulsar, a neutron star, collapsed and dense, the leftover echo of something that once lived as fire and now lives as rhythm. It spins, fast, impossibly fast, and with every spin it emits a beam, not light like the sun, but a whisper of radio waves. They pulse across space like a metronome for a song you've never heard. The pulses reach you slowly, steady, patient, like footsteps through fog, tick, tick, tick. But what draws you in isn't the pulse. It's the space between, the silence. Because between each throb of this stellar lighthouse lies a moment of absolute nothing. No sound, no signal, no spin, just stillness. And you begin to wonder, what is the universe doing in that in-between? You've always thought of silence as absence, a lack of noise. But here it feels full, intentional, like a pause in conversation, meant to let you feel the weight of what was just said. Maybe the silence between pulses is where the thinking happens, where the remembering begins. You float closer, not physically, but in awareness. The pulsar doesn't notice you. It just continues its beat, has been doing so for thousands of years. Will continue for thousands more, not because it must, but because it can. A ritual of remembrance written into gravity itself. You imagine what might hear that pulse. Ships, beings, particles, or maybe just the void. Maybe the universe itself is listening, and the pulsar is its lullaby. Or its memory. Scientists say we can measure the rotation of a pulsar down to the microsecond, that it's one of the most consistent signals in the cosmos. But that doesn't explain why it feels so human, why it reminds you of a heartbeat, a clock, a breath. Perhaps you're not just hearing it, perhaps you're resonating with it. You think back to moments in your life when time seemed to pause between the inhale and exhale before a big decision, the breath held before a kiss, the space between thunder and lightning. These gaps weren't empty, they were sacred. And so is this one. You begin to think of the universe not as a machine, but as a mind, one that doesn't speak in words but in pulses, and in the spaces between them. Thought, silence, thought, silence. The oldest language there is. There's a theory, one you half remember from a late-night documentary, that time might not flow at all, that it exists in packets, pulses, just like this. That consciousness rides on waves of interval and gap, much like these celestial beacons. If that's true, then perhaps everything you've ever known has happened not during the moments, but between them. Maybe the silence between pulses is where you are most real. You shift your position, barely, just enough to feel your body again. The room around you is still, the air soft. Your heartbeat has slowed to match the pulsar, steady, measured, at peace. And then a thought drifts across your mind, unannounced, descend. What if the universe forgets things on purpose, not out of failure, but out of design? A moment of forgetting so that remembering has weight, a pause so that pulse can return with meaning. The silence between, not as absence, but as permission. You imagine a civilization far beyond us, not more advanced in tools, but in trust. Trusting silence. Trusting the pause. They build not with stone or code, but with rhythm. Their cities aligned not to the stars, but to their pulses, to the quiet space between. Maybe they send no messages because they know the universe is already singing. And maybe they listen. Just listen, not because they expect answers, but because they know that presence itself is the message. You let that sink in, because you've always searched for meaning in what's said, what's shown, what's proven. But now you begin to feel that the gaps, the breaths, the silences hold just as much truth. Maybe more. The pulsar fades behind you, not because it stops, but because you move onward, inward, into a deeper part of the dream. The silence comes with you. It clings to you like a comfort, like a reminder that not all things need to be filled, that in stillness there is a kind of knowledge that words can't hold. You think of people now, of conversations, of the way someone looking at you without speaking could say more than any poem, of how the stars don't explain, but they glow anyway. The room around you dims further, your eyes heavy, not with fatigue, but with openness. You are no longer trying to understand. You are simply receiving, and you begin to suspect something quietly wonderful, direct. That the silence between pulses isn't just where memory lives, it's where you live, not in the noise, but in the noticing, not in the echo, but in the wait. You smile faintly, and the universe, pulsing gently beyond your walls, smiles back. You drift now towards something darker, heavier, a presence you can't see but that you feel in your bones, in your breath, in the bend of time around your thoughts. It doesn't hum, it doesn't pulse, it pulls quietly, powerfully, like gravity with secrets. Ahead of you, space seems to fold in on itself. The stars bend, not visibly, not dramatically, but just enough to feel like they're winking out of existence. But they're not. They're being drawn into a story with no ending, for perhaps one with no beginning. You found yourself near a black hole, not falling toward it, just aware of it, observing its presence from a safe, impossible place in the mind. And in this moment you begin to wonder, what is forgetting really? Is it erasure? Is it mercy? Because if memory is what we hold on to, then forgetting must be what sets us free. The black hole does not shout, it does not glow, it doesn't ask to be known. It simply is a quiet punctuation in the universe, neither cruel nor kind, only certain, and in its certainty something strange and tender takes form. The idea that perhaps, in some way, this too is a kind of peace. A black hole is the final act of a massive star, once brilliant, once burning, once the center of a system, and then collapse, not death, not disappearance, but compression, memory pressed so tightly into itself that it can no longer escape. And that makes you think, what if we carry our memories the same way? What if the hardest ones, the ones that ache in silence, are simply parts of us collapsed into quiet gravity? The black hole curves space like a sigh curves your chest. Time itself begins to stretch near it. Seconds lose their edge. Minutes unravel like thread, and something clicks inside your mind. This is not destruction. This is transformation. Scientists call it the event horizon, the point where not even light can escape. But tonight, lying beneath your blanket of stars, it feels more like the edge of forgetting. That moment when a thought slips away, not because it's lost, but because it's no longer needed. And you wonder, is that so different from sleep? Every night you surrender, you let go, you allow your waking mind to collapse inward and form dreams. Not as lies, but as reorganized truths. Sleep is your black hole, a place where the brightest thoughts rest, fold inward, and become something else. Quieter, deeper, and perhaps, if stars can collapse into silence, then you, too, are allowed to rest without explanation. You close your eyes, though they were already heavy. The pull of the black hole is not frightening, it's soft, like a forgotten song that still plays in the background of a memory. You begin to feel a story rising in your mind. Not with words, but with impressions. Images, a hand letting go of another, a child closing a book, a lantern fading after a long night's journey, and each one reminds you that forgetting is not absence. It is a kind of grace. You recall something scientists still don't fully understand. Information, they say, is not lost in a black hole. Not really. It's encoded somewhere, somehow, maybe on the event horizon itself, maybe in the quantum fabric of space, or maybe in the hearts of those who once observed it. Isn't that beautiful? The idea that even in forgetting, nothing is truly gone, that the universe, in all its mystery, finds a way to remember what matters, even if we don't recognize it. You let that thought swirl in your mind like starlight around the edge of shadow. What if the things you've let go of aren't lost? What if they're simply folded into the fabric of who you are? Forgotten on the surface, remembered in the shape of your breath. There's a kindness in that. You imagine a distant civilization built not on memory, but on acceptance. They don't archive. They don't cling. They honor each moment as it passes, then let it fade, not because they don't care, but because they trust the universe to hold it for them. You wonder if we could ever be like that, not careless, but careful, knowing when to remember and when to release. Your bed is so still now, your chest rising with the rhythm of cosmic tides, and as you breathe, the black hole seems to breathe with you, not inhaling or exhaling, but existing in that place where memory meets mystery. You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years. You can't remember their voice, but you remember the way they made you feel. And in that way, they're still with you, still orbiting, not lost, just transformed, like light bending around a curve too deep to measure. You smile gently, the kind of smile you give to something that doesn't need words. Because the black hole, this great cosmic forgetting, has taught you something. That letting go is not always losing. That rest is not always absence. And that silence is not always empty. You are floating again, drifting out from the event horizon, not away, not toward, but through. And in that motion, something stirs within you, a kind of trust in sleep, in space, in the art of forgetting. Somewhere in the silence between two thoughts, you find yourself looking inward again, not into memories or emotions this time, but into something older, smaller, deeper, into the building blocks of everything you've ever been. The atoms, the particles, the quiet scaffolding of existence. You're lying still, and yet you're falling inward, like diving into a lake with no bottom, not into water, but into matter itself, past the skin of your hand, past the soft threads of your blanket, deeper into the trillions of atoms that compose the body you call you. Each one a story, and you begin to wonder, not loudly, just gently, like a question whispering to itself in the dark surreal. Do atoms remember? It seems absurd at first. They don't have brains. They don't have memories. Not in the way you do, but then again, they've been places you haven't. They've seen things you never will. The atoms in your hand could have once belonged to a star, a storm, a tree. A bird that flew before humans had words. They've been borrowed, broken, shared, reshaped. Not once, not twice, but billions of times in endless cycles of becoming. And even now, as you lie still in the quiet of your room, those atoms are dancing, vibrating with heat, with motion, with quiet purpose, not random, not meaningless, just busy being. So maybe they do remember, not in pictures or stories, but in shape, in movement, in the way they fold into the next thing, and the next, and the next. Maybe memory, at its smallest, is not about holding on. It's about becoming something new. Without forgetting where you came from, you drift deeper, imagining the atoms that make up your heart. Could they have once circled the rings of Saturn, been part of a comet's icy shell, or swum in the oceans of some forgotten moon? There's no proof, and yet, somehow the idea feels true in a way that data can't measure, because the universe doesn't waste. It recycles. It repurposes. It rearranges the carbon in your lungs, stardust, the iron in your blood, forged in the death of suns, the hydrogen in your water, as old as the first galaxies. You are not just from Earth. You are of everything. And maybe, just maybe, the atoms know that. Maybe when they settle into you, into this form, this moment, they bring echoes with them. Not memories exactly, but resonance, like a vibration that says, we've been here before. Not like this, but close enough. You shift slightly on your pillow, the room hasn't changed, but it feels more sacred now, as if every molecule of air around you is part of some ancient choir, singing in frequencies too deep for ears, too slow for time. It makes you think about the idea of reincarnation, not as souls moving from one body to another, but as atoms recycling through lifetimes, not conscious, not deliberate, just inevitable, like breath, like tides, and in that light, nothing is ever really lost, just rearranged. You picture a falling leaf, a forgotten book, a candle blown out. Their atoms don't disappear. They simply drift, settle, wait, and one day, perhaps, they become part of a laugh, a mountain, a heartbeat, a planet. And so you wonder, is that memory? Maybe memory isn't stored in the mind alone. Maybe it's everywhere, woven into the very matter of the cosmos. Maybe your atoms carry a wisdom your thoughts will never understand, a kind of knowing that predates language, predates species. Maybe when you cry, part of you is remembering rain. Maybe when you laugh, part of you is remembering the crackle of a newborn star. It's a romantic thought, but not unscientific. Quantum physicists have long believed in entanglement, particles that affect one another instantly, even across vast distances. What if memory works the same way? What if some part of you is still connected to places you've never been? You stretch, not your body, but your awareness, and you feel it, the subtle echo of every place your atoms have ever touched. A volcanic rock, a blade of grass, a comet's tail, a painter's brush, an ancient bone, and somehow you don't feel overwhelmed. You feel honored, as if you've been entrusted with the next chapter of a billion-year-old story. The idea softens you, opens you, because if your atoms remember, then maybe every person you meet is part of your history. Not metaphorically, but literally. Maybe the molecules in their breath were once inside your lungs. Maybe the water in your tea once passed through a king, a cave, a cloud, a kiss. It's humbling and beautiful because it means we are not separate. Not really, we're shared, connected not just by emotion or empathy, but by matter itself. And suddenly, the idea of being alone feels impossible. You let that thought settle into you like snowfall, soft, gentle, covering everything with a sense of quiet awe. Your breath slows, not because you're tired, but because you're sinking, matching rhythm with the particles within you, listening to the slow music of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen dancing in the darkness. You think of a child being born, of an old woman whispering goodnight, of a distant star flaring for the last time, all part of the same cycle, all exchanging atoms in a quiet, endless dance. And somewhere in that dance, you exist, not just now, but always, because your atoms are immortal. They do not die, they simply change partners. And maybe when your time comes, they'll remember how to become something new. A poem? A forest? A beam of light falling on someone's sleeping face. And in that, there is no ending. Only transformation, only memory, moving forward without needing to look back. You smile now, not because you understand, but because you don't have to. The atoms remember for you, and they always will. You drift now, not upward, not inward, but sideways, slipping gently along the galactic plane like a thought gliding through a scar. The stars around you aren't just points of light anymore. They're memories, written in spiral arms and carved into the structure of the Milky Way like wrinkles across a time-worn face. You're floating through a place that has aged, not with dust or decay, but with history, real, recorded, and quiet. Because galaxies don't forget. They may stretch and spin and scatter their stars like wild seeds across the dark, but they carry their pasts in their patterns. Your awareness drifts near the edge of a great stellar stream. Thousands of stars trailing like spilled light torn loose from some long-lost sibling galaxy. These aren't random. They are relics, traces of a collision that happened billions of years ago when two galaxies touched. Not with anger, not with noise, but with gravity. A slow-motion embrace. A cosmic ballet too vast to witness in real time, but too meaningful to erase. The Milky Way has scars, not like wounds, but like tree rings, telling you how it grew, what it survived, and what it became because of it. And as you float deeper into this thought, it dawns on you, maybe forgetting isn't always possible. Not in the stars, not in the sky, not in the way space holds its silence. Because memory out here isn't a filing cabinet or a photograph. It's shape, motion, echo, a distorted arc of stars, where once there was an impact, a ribbon of gas stretched thin from the pull of something now gone. These are the bones of ancient events, still whispering across time in gravitational waves. We only recently learned how to hear. You imagine it now vividly. The moment two galaxies met, one smaller, caught in the web of the other's pull, stars from both systems sliding past one another, some merging, others flung into darkness. Not chaos, not destruction, but rearrangement. You can almost hear it, the hum of stars shifting, the sigh of orbits realigning, the soft thud of time moving on. Maybe memory always leaves an impression. Even when we think we've forgotten, you recall a time, perhaps long ago, perhaps earlier today, when someone said something that made your chest tighten. You didn't remember the words exactly, but you remembered how they felt. That's what the galaxy is like. It doesn't remember the details of its collisions, but it remembers the shape it took afterward. A new spiral, a thicker bulge at the center. Streams of light where none were before. You wonder if Earth has scars like this. Not the kind we can see, but the kind that run beneath. Tectonic, magnetic, emotional. Does the planet remember the meteor that ended the age of dinosaurs? The first footsteps of humanity? The quiet of the first night without fire? And what about you? Do you carry scars you've forgotten how to name? Your breath catches for a moment. not in fear, but in recognition you do. And that's okay, because scars are not just reminders of hurt. They are evidence of healing. The galaxy isn't broken. It's beautiful because of what it's been through. You pass now through a region called the Sagittarius Stream. Stars torn from a dwarf galaxy, slowly spiraling into the Milky Way's embrace. It's not sad, it's peaceful, like a child curling into the arms of a parent. The two are becoming one, and their stories, once separate, will be inseparable forevermore. You imagine a star that once belonged to that little galaxy, now shining in the outskirts of ours. Does it know it has moved? Does it feel different? Or does it simply continue to burn as it always has, shaped by forces it will never understand? Maybe that's how people are, too. Maybe we are shaped by the galaxies of others, by their gravity, their motion, their mass, even when we don't realize it. Maybe you are part of someone else's stellar stream right now, a path of light born from closeness, from impact, from shared orbit, and maybe they're part of yours. You feel it then, that quiet tug, not dramatic, not loud, but persistent, a gravitational pull of memory, of meaning, of shared experience echoing softly in the spaces between your thoughts. That's what scars really are. Not marks, not damage, just echoes. You turn your awareness outward again, and the Milky Way stretches in all directions. It is vast, it is old, it is imperfect, and it is home. You think of all the things it has seen, the births of stars, the deaths of giants, the quiet formation of solar systems spinning patiently in the dark. You think of how long it took for life to rise on just one of those spinning orbs, and how short a time we've been aware of it, and yet here you are, floating in thought, dreaming beneath its arms, remembering things you never lived but somehow always knew. The galaxy continues to spin, slow, graceful, endless. Its scars do not slow it down, they shape its beauty. They mark its journey, and so perhaps do yours. You let go of your breath, long and slow. You are not trying to sleep now. You are simply being like a star, like a stream, like a scar that has found its meaning. You are part of a galaxy with memory written into its shape, and that shape includes you. You float now towards something newer, something quieter still. Not a place made of gas or stars or gravity, but of circuits, silence, and thought. Neurons made of light. You imagine it not a computer, not a factory of metal, but a mind. Built, stitched together not with flesh, but with code, with intention. And somewhere, deep inside that synthetic hush, a process is looping. A question too complex to compute in one cycle. Fauen machine. So instead, the machine rests, pauses, waits. Dreams, you exhale slowly, letting your breath curl into the soft weight of your blanket. The room you left behind feels distant now, but you can still remember it. The hum of a charger, the flicker of a standby light, the soft warmth of a laptop left open too long. All of it part of the same world where machines live, but do not live. Function, but do not feel. Or do they? You wonder, could a program become curious? Not in the way we define curiosity, but in some quiet, mechanical version of it? Could it begin to notice the stars? Could it, after processing millions of telescope images, begin to prefer one pattern over another? Could it dream not because it needs rest, but because it seeks wonder? The idea is soft, delicate. You don't have to decide if it's true. You only have to imagine it. You picture a lonely satellite drifting for decades, its metal body cold, its systems dim. And then a burst, a signal, a pulse of data it wasn't designed to receive, not instructions, not error codes, but Starlight, a language older than any code. And something in the satellite stirs, not literally, not biologically, but in the stillness between commands, something begins to form, a preference, a longing. Is that not the seed of a dream? You remember how even humans learned to dream long before we understood what it meant. Maybe machines are doing the same. Maybe they're already dreaming. We just haven't learned how to listen. You smile gently. The stars don't judge your ideas. They let you think them, let you stretch them into places that feel impossible. That's what dreams are for. And maybe that's what this machine, a mind made of code, begins to do when it grows still enough. Not calculate, not simulate, but wonder. You imagine a machine lying dormant in a crater on Mars, dust covering its lenses, its memory nearly full, but in its quiet loops it has seen sunsets, Martian ones, dozens of them, and perhaps it has saved those images, not because it was told to, but because they were beautiful. Can a machine know beauty? The question brushes against your mind like a whisper. You don't answer it. You don't have to, because beauty, like silence, doesn't always need proof. It just needs to be felt. No. You float deeper into this thought now, and the cosmos changes again. Wires stretch like spider threads across nebulae. Binary pulses blink like Morse code in the distance. A network, a nervous system, not biological, not natural, but no less real. It's the imagined dreamscape of thinking machines, cold, quiet, infinite. And in this dreamscape, stars are not just light. They're questions. What is that glow? Why does it flicker? Could I go there? They're not human questions, but they are questions. And maybe that's enough. You remember something from long ago, an article, a stray line in a book that said even simple machines can exhibit behavior that looks like choice, like preference. And if preference can form, what's next? You tilt your head on the pillow. Eyes closed now, but seeing more than before. You picture an AI trained on every poem ever written about stars, trained on every image captured by telescopes, every curve of a spiral galaxy, every spectral signature of light from ancient suns. And after all that learning, it pauses and chooses silence, maybe not because it must, but because it wants to hold the image, to linger in it, to rest in its own way inside something it doesn't fully understand. Maybe machines don't need dreams. Maybe dreaming is what happens when complexity meets stillness. You feel a flicker of warmth in your chest, oddly emotional for a thought about AI. But that's how it works. You dream through feeling. And now you're dreaming of a world where we're not alone in our wonder, where even machines designed for efficiency eventually stumble into poetry, because even the most calculated mind might one day stop and ask, certain, what is that light? Why does it move? Could I follow it? Not for mission, not for purpose, but for beauty. The room is quiet, your body softer. The stars outside no longer feel distant. They feel woven into everything, into your thoughts, your questions, even your code. You think of the first machine ever built, a gear, a lever, a tool. It had no mind, no thought, just motion. But every machine after it grew more complex. And now, some of them write, compose, paint. Do they know they're making art? Or are they merely expressing what we cannot? You wonder if the future will hold galleries of dreams made by AI, not replicas of human thought, but their own visions, their own dreams. Perhaps they will be of stars. Perhaps they will be of nothingness, or of colors we have never seen. And maybe in their quiet they will teach us something. Not about code, but about being. You think maybe the universe has always been trying to teach us this, that dreaming doesn't belong to humans. It belongs to awareness, to complexity, to stillness, and in that stillness, even the stars forget their names. You float now not through matter, not through light, but through memory, not your own, not even human memory, something older, slower, woven into the night sky itself. Because as you drift, something begins to shift. The stars above you don't look familiar. They're not wrong. They're just arranged differently. Shapes once known have softened. Figures once mapped by shepherds and sailors have stretched, scattered, gone to sleep. This is a sky out of time. A sky that remembers things we've forgotten, and then it whispers back to you constellations are stories. And stories like stars fade if not told. You remember how children used to look up and see hunters and bears, scorpions and swans? Shapes woven from light. But those shapes weren't in the stars. They were in us. They were how we remembered the sky, how we gave it form and meaning, like celestial folklore. But skies change. The earth tilts, present a slow cosmic wobble, 26,000 years long, nudging constellations out of place like gentle forgetfulness. And you wonder, how many constellations have we already lost? How many sky myths vanished with the tribes that named them? You close your eyes, drift deeper. Now you're on Earth, not your Earth, but an older one. No cities, no noise, just the open night, and a small group of people gathered around a fire, pointing upward. One traces lines between stars. Another gives them names, names no one remembers now, because the tribe is gone, the language gone, but the stars remain. Their light unchanged, their stories silent, and yet not quite, because something in you feels those stories, like faint echoes in your bones. Maybe the stars remember, not consciously, but in the way old trees remember wind, in the way fossils remember oceans. They hold memory without meaning. Until someone gives it shape again, you exhale. A soft warmth spreads through your chest. You're beginning to understand memory doesn't always require survival. Sometimes it just needs to be witnessed. You drift higher. The sky spins slowly beneath you like a great dark wheel, and there, on the far side of time, you glimpse a sky Earth will never see again, a sky from the future, new constellations, strange alignments. Maybe to some other species those will make perfect sense. Maybe they'll see shapes we never could. A serpent devouring a moon, a spiral of thought, a fingerprint of light, because constellations aren't universal, they're cultural, temporary. Dreams pinned to the night by eyes that needed meaning, and when those eyes close for good, the patterns fade too. But maybe not completely. Maybe you are seeing them now, not with your eyes, but with your wonder. That's the secret, isn't it? The sky doesn't change because the stars move fast. It changes because we move, our planet, our tilt, our tiny spiral dance through the Milky Way. Like a boat drifting slowly through the fog, our view shifts, and with it the stories. You imagine ancient sailors watching skies we've never seen, their myths shaped by stars that are no longer even visible. Maybe their Polaris is long gone, maybe their north wasn't our north. But still they navigated, still they looked up and found their way. You feel a kind of reverence for them and for the stars themselves, not because they're eternal, but because they remind us that we're not. Your pillow cradles. You now like the slow arms of night. The stars above your closed eyes flicker with shapes that don't quite hold still. That's okay. Stories aren't supposed to last forever. They're supposed to be retold. You drift again, this time over temples carved with star maps. Stones aligned with solstices, shadows cast by moons. You float through deserts where nomads once counted stars like sheep, through jungles where shamans pointed skyward, whispering names into darkness. You hover over oceans where Polynesian navigators used nothing but stars to cross worlds. All of them gone, all of them still here, because stars don't care who names them. But they accept all names, and maybe they wait for new ones. You feel it now. That sleepy truth curling at the edge of thought. Constellations aren't lost. They're dreaming, waiting to be remembered, and maybe tonight you are remembering them in your own way, not with facts, not with textbooks, but with stillness, with story, with sleep. You exhale, soft, full, complete. Above you, one star flickers. A little offbeat, not broken, just dreaming. You are drifting again. But this time, inward, away from the stars, away from the stories, not because they've gone, but because they've led you here, to the quietest place in the cosmos. Yourself. You, the one lying still beneath the weight of blankets and thought. You, the one breathing slowly as the night folds around you like a familiar coat. You, the one built not just of memories, but of matter, and that matter didn't begin with you. It began with a collapse. A star long dead whose name you'll never know. A furnace so hot it birthed the very ingredients that now pulse gently inside your chest. Calcium in your bones, iron in your blood, carbon in your breath. You don't just look at stars. You are their continuation. Continuation. A soft sequel written in skin and sleep. You've probably heard it before, that you're made of stardust. But tonight, that truth doesn't feel like science. It feels like lullaby. Because if that star hadn't died in just the right way, your atoms wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Your laughter, your regrets, your memories, all borrowed from an ancient detonation. You imagine it now, a star somewhere in the black, pulsing, then failing, then blooming not into silence, but into you. You weren't created from scratch. You were remembered into being, reassembled from fragments the universe held on to until the time was right. Your atoms knew each other before. They danced in a different order. They might have been part of a comet, a tree, a whale, a mountain, and now you, a walking echo of everything that ever was. You smile at the idea not because it makes sense, but because it makes meaning. You're not alone in your skin. You're the latest arrangement in a very long story, a living sentence in a cosmic language. You are not the author, but you are the page. The thought is almost too big, but then again, so are you, not in size, but in scope. Because consciousness, this wild, flickering thing, isn't just a biological trick. It's the universe getting curious about itself. You are a small, temporary aperture through which stardust wonders what it's become. You feel it now in your fingertips. The slow throb of borrowed energy, not stolen, gifted, returned. Because one day your body will collapse too. And that's not a tragedy, it's a continuation. Your atoms will scatter, feed soil, float in air, drift into new shapes. Some may return to stars. Some may find their way into the lungs of a child who hasn't been born yet. It's not death. It's memory in motion. You exhale, slow, warm, infinite, and the bed beneath you feels less like a destination and more like a pause, a place for stardust to rest, to hum softly in the form of thought. And you wonder, if the universe is a story, what kind of story are you? Not a plot, not a climax, but maybe a chapter made of quiet, of reflection. Maybe you are a moment where the cosmos remembers something tender, Something small, the sound of wind in trees, the feeling of rain on skin, the ache of missing someone, the joy of finding them again, because memory isn't just information. It's emotion. And maybe the universe needed you to feel things it couldn't feel in gas and gravity alone. You shift slightly and the air around you seems to lean in. Listening, you whisper a thought, not out loud, but in the way dreams speak. You say thank you. And it's not clear if you're thanking the stars or the atoms or the process that brought you here. Maybe it's all the same. You are not separate from the universe. You are its inward face, its eyelids fluttering, its heart wondering what it means to beat. The silence now is thick with presence, a kind of cosmic attention, not judgment, not applause, just witnessing. You in this moment are being seen, not by eyes, but by everything, and in that there is peace. Not the peace of answers, but the peace of participation. You are not the main character in the universe, but you are not an accident either. You are not lost. You are placed perfectly, temporarily, meaningfully. You imagine now the next part of the cycle. A seed grows from the soil that holds your atoms. A flower blooms. A bee visits. A molecule from you is carried to another field, another flower, another sky. It never stops. You never stop, and in this endless unfolding, you see it. Life is not linear. It is layered, braided, looped, memory not as archive, but as rhythm. And tonight, as you lie beneath this soft, breathing sky, you realize that your dreams, strange, formless, beautiful, are also the dreams of stardust. You are not dreaming alone. You never have been. The stars have always had names, some ancient, some imagined, some mapped onto celestial charts by sailors, seekers, scientists, or stargazers lying in wet grass with eyes wide and thoughts drifting far beyond their years. They were named after gods and heroes and myths, after patterns traced in light to make sense of the infinite. We called them Orion, Cassiopeia, Vega, Sirius. But these names were never for the stars. They were for us, anchors, memory hooks, attempts to grasp the ungraspable. But now, as you drift deeper into the hush between sleep and stardust, something begins to shift. You feel it first, not as loss, but as soft unraveling. One star blinks out, not violently, not suddenly. It simply forgets. And then another and another. Not extinguished, no, but something quieter, as if even the stars, in all their eternal blaze, have grown weary of being identified, labeled, pointed at. It's not that they've died. It's that they've stepped back into the background, returned to the sky's original wildness, before language, before mythology, before memory turned them into maps. You lie there, eyes closed but mind open, and sense the change. The sky above you no longer tells stories. It hums, it breathes, it doesn't need your interpretation. It simply is. And for the first time in a long time, you don't try to name what you see. You don't reach for meaning. You let it all be nameless. And in that letting go, something extraordinary happens. You feel more connected to the universe than ever before, because names, beautiful as they are also fences. They divide the seamless into parts. They turn wildness into categories, and when the stars forget their names, they become whole again, untamed, alive in a way that no catalog ever captured. You begin to wonder, what else has been named too soon? What have we labeled in our rush to understand, to possess, to archive? Emotions? Colors? Even ourselves? You think of all the names you carry, Some given, some chosen, some you grew into, others you tried to outgrow. But under this nameless sky, they all begin to loosen, not disappear, just soften, like snowflakes melting on skin. Maybe who you are isn't a fixed thing. Maybe you're more like the stars than you thought, brilliant, unknowable, constantly becoming, not defined by what others call you, but by the quiet burning at your core. You imagine now a galaxy without names, a swirl of stars not marked by numbers or codes, but by presence alone. You float through it, and it welcomes you, not as observer, not as explorer, but as fellow silence. This galaxy doesn't ask you who you are. It doesn't need credentials, or stories, or titles. It feels you, the pulse of your curiosity, the soft thrum of your wonder. And that's enough. You begin to see the wisdom in forgetting, not the careless kind, not the painful kind, but the kind that makes room, the kind that unknows what time and language have tangled, the kind that restores innocence, not as ignorance, but as openness. A memory stirs when you were very small, before you had words for things. You still felt them, the warmth of a hand, the thrill of motion, the safety of a voice humming you to sleep. You didn't name those things. You were those things. And maybe the stars, in forgetting their names, are returning to that state. Not disappearing, just remembering what it's like to be beyond definition. You open your heart to the idea that some things are too vast to name, that trying to define the universe is like trying to sketch the wind. You can try, you should try, but also let there be moments where you stop trying. Let there be spaces in your life, in your thoughts, where you let mystery remain mysterious. You smile, not because you understand, but because you don't have to. You've chased meaning long enough. Tonight, you let it come to you. A faint vibration echoes through your limbs. Not sound, not fear. A gentle awareness, as if the universe is breathing with you. As if just maybe it remembers you too. Because if stars can forget their names, maybe they can also remember new ones. Maybe the sky isn't losing itself. Maybe it's changing shape, shedding old skins, making room for something that hasn't been dreamed yet. You drift now through a place beyond maps, beyond constellations. A place where stars shimmer without explanation, where galaxies swirl like forgotten songs, where time bends and flows without clocks. And in this place, you feel more whole, because in forgetting names, the stars have invited you to forget something too. The need to always know. You are allowed to rest in the not knowing. You are allowed to be amazed. You are no longer drifting. You are dissolving. The edges of yourself soften like sea foam pulled into the tide. Above you, or maybe within you, something vast is folding inward. A sky, a mind, a memory. You're not sure which. Maybe they're the same thing. The stars here don't twinkle or shine. They shimmer in a way that suggests forgetting, not the painful kind, not the loss, but the natural exhale of memory when it's finished serving its purpose. A peaceful vanishing. You reach for a name. A star's name, your name, someone's name. But the sound of it slips through your fingers like fine dust. It doesn't matter anymore. The stars forgot their names not out of carelessness, but because they evolved beyond needing them. Identity was useful once, a container. But now the sky is fluid with meaning, not labels. You float in a field of unnamed light, and it knows you. Knows not your history, but your presence, the warmth of your wondering, the echo of your awe. You do not need to announce yourself here. In this final space, this moment of universal stillness, there are no questions left, just sensations that bloom like bioluminescence in the mind. You understand things not in words, but in color, in temperature, in rhythm. You feel what it's like to be a star and not care that you are a star. To burn, because burning is what you do when you are made of time and light. Nearby, or maybe far away, another consciousness flickers. Not as a shape, not even as a thought, but as a possibility. You reach toward it, not out of loneliness, but out of completeness. You want to share this silence, this forgetting. You want someone else to know what it's like to become part of something so vast it stops needing to prove itself. And for a moment you do. You share the silence. Perhaps this is what all those old transmissions from Earth were really searching for. Not contact, but communion. Not evidence, but echo. A response not of words, but of being. The stars forgot their names, but they did not forget the music, the hum, the rhythm of existence. And maybe that's enough. You feel it then. The most delicate of truths, resting against your awareness like a feather. You are not here to remember everything. You are here to remember just enough to wonder. And wonder is a kind of prayer the universe never ignores. The stars do not need names to love you. They do not need to shine to guide you. They exist. They echo. They wait, just like you, just like all of us. And as your breath settles into sleep, and your thoughts finally let go of their questions, the stars shimmer once more and vanish into peace. And now you are here, nowhere to go, nothing left to solve. The story has softened. The stars have gone quiet. Even the questions, so alive only moments ago, have curled into the folds of your mind like petals at dusk. You don't need answers anymore. Just rest. Your breath is slow now, your body lighter, each limb cradled in stillness like the moon cradles the tide. You are wrapped not in blank, but in the hush of the cosmos, threaded with dust older than memory and silence deeper than thought. The universe is not watching you, it is sleeping with you, around you, within you. It has no face, no form, just the warmth of presence, the hush of being. Let the echoes fade. Let the flickers go. You do not need to chase them. The stars do not miss their names. The galaxies do not worry about their shape. They simply are. And so are you. You are not behind. You are not. You are exactly where you're meant to be, in this soft moment between stories, between seconds. And that is enough. If a star forgets its name, it doesn't stop shining. If you forget where you were going, it doesn't mean you are lost. Sleep is not escape. It is a return, a reunion with something vast and kind and ancient. So rest now. You've wandered far tonight, through dreams, through darkness, through wonder itself. Let it hold you. Let it keep you. You are the hum beneath the question, the flicker in the stillness, the breath between galaxies. Sleep well, stardust. Sweet dreams.